Hello, hello. Welcome to the Get You Some Podcast. It is I, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Zex. Happy Super Bowl Sunday. Shine bright like a diamond. Not much of a football fan. Not invested in this year's teams. I'm just happy that the Cowboys didn't get to the Super Bowl. Nothing against the team, nothing against their fans, except one in particular. And to this fan I say, sabik na naghihintay sa iyo ang kamatayan. And for my Spanish speakers, la muerte te espera ansiosa. And to my Japanese listeners, shiga kimi o mashino zondeiru. Today is a very special episode because these topics that I have for you today have been requested more than any I have had so far. This entire episode will essentially be dedicated to the fine art of taking an L with grace. Starting off, we have a training question. Yeah. Question comes from the great Sky Mixed Sausage Burrito. Sky writes, Commander Zex, leader of the legendary Team Epyon. Oh, stop. In your long, arduous journey of training and competition, particularly martial arts, you are known for throwing the shit out of big dudes. Oh, yeah. And as you would say, taking the L with grace. I literally just said that. In the years that I have known you, I have never seen you show unsportsmanlike conduct. Well, not in losing anyway. I have seen you win at Tekken and pretend to ejaculate all over your opponent. I never said I was a good winner. But in defeat, you have always been graceful and humble. Wow. Now that you are old as fuck you. How do you think... I think he meant to say think. Illiterate ass nigga. How do you think and process defeat, and what do you think is different between when you were young as a competitor in the trenches with me, and now that you've aged like dog shit? Oh my god. P.S. You know I respect the fuck out of you, and I still love breaking your balls, but I want you to share your philosophy with the younger cats on this podcast. Cheers, you beastly ass mofo. we have been through a lot. Thank you, Mr. Sausage. Sausage. This is indeed something I am familiar with, and in my lifetime, I have taken L's in every form of the word. Hell, I just took one last Wednesday. Believe it or not, I've never been a very good competitor. I believe that I was an adequate trainer and coach, but I never won gold. The best I've ever managed to do is win silver and bronze in 2 divisions in the same day, but as far as I got close to it, I never actually won. I definitely trained my ass off though, and I know better than most how debilitating a loss can be. When you dedicate and sacrifice so many days in order to train for competition, giving up time with your loved ones and partying with your friends, it's easy to feel like it was all for naught when you're defeated in single combat. I definitely took my losses very hard. I would always show respect to my opponent, no matter how bad they beat me, no matter how humiliated I felt. I've been choked unconscious, been laid limp on the mat, and just straight up wrecked. Booty hole! Anyway, I said that. But I believe then, as much as I do now, that I could never dishonor myself or my team by conducting myself in an ill manner. Even if I've been known to do a little ridiculous jig after a win on that Jean-Claude shit. But anyway, I used to take a loss so badly that I wouldn't go back to training. I would I would hide in my room under the covers with the windows closed for at least a week. I was always ashamed to show my face to the team, having felt like I betrayed them and dishonored us in such a way, displaying my weakness and undisciplined nature. But it was my master, as well as my brothers, that taught me that defeat was simply a mindset, and that I'm not truly beaten until I acquiesce to it. The great Robert Greene Ingersoll once said, "The greatest test of courage is to bear defeat without losing heart." So through the years, I learned to accept that as long as I gave it everything I had no reason to feel shame. We all fail in our pursuits, and the difference between a novice and a master is that the master has failed more times than the novice has tried. You learn from a loss insurmountably more than from winning. Winning may teach you grace, but defeat teaches you humility. The difference between me as a kid, when I would have to rely on the courage of my teammates to carry me on. Eventually, I would just accept that I had to train that much harder. But in my experience now, I don't even bat an eye at it. I haven't competed in a while, mind you, but the last time, I remember being grateful to step on the mat with such adequate warriors, and I took the loss and went straight back to the drawing board with it to see where my flaws cost me. Whatever it is that I failed to do, it was exposed in competition. So that is my simple answer for bearing the defeat. I understand now that it takes heart to step on the mat in the first place, and that I just have to do my best. If I fail to win, I could learn from the mistakes I make. This is true in life as well. One last piece of straight master level advice from my master and his teachers before him. The great Carlson Gracie Sr. said, "If you cannot win, make the enemy pay a steep price for victory." I have faced opponents I couldn't beat, but I knew if I couldn't squeeze out the win, I was going to, at the very least, the bare minimum, never let him forget how hard I was going to make him work for it. Pause. To this day, I know a friend I made in combat who still tells me to this day the ice he would feel in his veins when he remembered the hell that I put him through before he eked out a victory. Because I was unrelenting in my attack, despite his superior jiu-jitsu. And to me, that is just as beautiful and fulfilling to know that I let that little bit of trauma. And with that, we're going to bring you to the sponsor of the day. This episode of the Get You Some podcast is brought to you by Platinum Ass Hair.
There it is.
Show the world how kooky you are by frying your shit with 40 volume and showing the world your platinum ass, thoughty ass hair.
Dang.
My dude's hair is on fleek. Alright, because we have such an extensive topic to deal with in the final section of this episode, we have a very limited spot for the music. However, I would like to take time for this episode to simply point out that there was a lost track from the Meteora album of Linkin Park's collection that was unreleased for the last 20 years that album has been out. And in honor of Chester Bennington and in honor of Linkin, you know what time it is.
Now this is some heavy shit.
Today's topic is one that has been looming for quite a while now. Rejection. I am all too familiar with this phenomenon, be it from a life perspective, professionally, or romantically. The human condition is such an interesting and unique experience. We want so badly to be accepted and to please others. We feel the need to belong, so much so that it's almost debilitating to feel the rejection that comes from life. And on top of that, we never quite truly get over the rejections we feel. Rejection has a way of compounding onto itself and multiplying. When you feel rejected, you don't just feel that one singular moment. I know you feel the rejection of the moment on top of the many times. Those feelings that ravage their way through your heart and mind. You feel every piece of hatred as previous rejections dig themselves up and add their misery to your already downtrodden demeanor. This is all of us, my friend. We all feel this at some time or another. We all feel like we are unwanted and dejected by society when we don't get what we want. It is so easy to fall into the mindset that we simply aren't good enough, that we are inadequate, that we were fools for even trying. I'm going to say it out loud for you to hear. It's okay. You are fine. Just because you were rejected at that time doesn't mean that you weren't good enough. It just means that at this moment, you do not yet fit the profile of what they seek to fill. Some things we don't realize are a blessing in disguise. Sometimes the thing that is the worst for us is to get what we want. Because we don't see that it's not just that we are not fit for it, but that it is not fit for us either. Let's look at it from a professional point of view. I interviewed for a job and realized that even though I feel like I have all the qualifications, I'm still not chosen. And there are so many facets to this rejection that you just can't always see right away. Sometimes it's a political thing. Sometimes they already had what they had wanted in mind, and interviewing you was just a formality. And that's okay. If by chance you were able to see why it was that you weren't chosen, you can look to improve what you were unable to show at that particular moment. Sometimes the defeat you feel can lead you to better opportunities. And like I said in my previous segment, you're never truly beaten until you give up. You have to take the L and just move on. My advice from a professional standpoint is to keep improving upon your skills and do not be deterred by rejection. Strive until you are so damn good at what you do that they would be mistaken to choose anyone else. Work hard at becoming that damn good that no one could dare deny your competence. Reputation is everything. Even if you weren't selected, I urge you to take the defeat with grace and thank them for their time anyway. Sometimes you end up making a good impression just by being graceful, even in disappointment. I'll tell you a story. When I was in San Diego, I interviewed for a law firm, and I wasn't selected the first time. I thanked them in email and by phone, and they told me that I wasn't selected because they chose their candidate. They believed that person was best suited for the position. Sometime later, I saw their ad had moved from Craigslist and showed up on Indeed. I called them to ask if they were hiring again. They called me to tell me that the previous candidate did not end up working out, but after that, they decided simply not to fill the position at the time. I was dejected, but I simply thanked them once again and hoped that they would keep my resume on file. Fast forward sometime later, I was in a very low place. I was sitting in the parking lot of a Ralph's, contemplating spending my last $4 on a bag of fucking potato wedges. I was so severely behind on my payments and embarrassed by the fact that I was late to my rent. I spent those $4 and ate my wedges in silence, and then I got a phone call. And because I didn't recognize the number at first, I just didn't take it. I got a voicemail. It was that same law firm that had rejected me twice. 2 times! They asked me if I was still interested in the position. And instead of being spiteful, I came to the office to meet with the attorneys again, and this time, it was a celebration. I was expecting a second interview. Instead, they simply offered me the position and $3 above what was initially agreed upon in the ad. And I was very happy to accept. Sometimes, you just have to persevere. Now, let's talk about the romantic standpoint. Rejection has a profound effect on our psyche. It can make us feel unlovable and unattractive because we forget that people have a right to choose. There is an absolute rule that I would like to share with you all. Attraction is not a choice. And don't ever let anybody bullshit you otherwise. You cannot help who you are attracted to. And you have to accept that some people will not be attracted to you no matter what you change. It doesn't mean they can't ever, but it's not something you force. It happens organically. If someone doesn't fuck with you on that level, it's okay. We take things so goddamn personally that we assume the worst of ourselves. Oftentimes, people make their opinions based on things they don't even fucking understand about themselves. Very rarely does someone actually know what they truly want in a person. It takes so much to actually know that about themselves. You have to date and explore, and more often than not, experience disappointment in order to learn this about yourself. That's why I understand the surprise when young couples get married and wonder why it doesn't work out. How the fuck can you possibly know what you want from your partner when you don't even fucking know who you are yet? It's a recipe for disaster. Learn about yourself. More importantly, you cannot love others if you haven't learned to love yourself first. And this goes beyond that fucking cliche. I mean that shit. If you don't give a fuck about yourself, you don't dare expect others to do it for you. My experience looking at successful relationships is that people who know their worth and appreciate themselves and value their own lives and experiences will not tolerate disrespect and will not force anyone to settle for them. No one should ever fucking settle for anyone. It's a downright insult, not just to the person, but to your damn self. I'm going to share something with you. I've been told that I have an air of confidence, but not arrogance. Though, if you'd ask me, I'd say I'm an arrogant prick, betraying what I just taught you in my last episode about negative self-talk. But I'm trying to keep it 92 plus 8 with you. I hated rejection. I still do. Nothing pisses me off more than the dishonesty of rejection when it comes from pity. If you don't fuck with someone, be honest and have the courage to tell them the truth. So what if they say some rude shit? That shit is not a reflection on you, it's a reflection on them. If someone asks you out and you politely decline, then they follow through by saying some shit and decide to cope hella hard and just let them show their true colors. They will say anything to elicit a response from you to make themselves feel better. But that's all it is. It's an insult meant to hurt you the way that they believe you have perceivably hurt them. You were just being honest, and they have to accept that you do not choose them. As long as you're polite about it, they just have to deal with it. And that goes for you too. If you shoot your shot and get curved, politely walk away, take yourself from the situation, and give them no more of your energy. But be polite and honorable in your rejection. Not for them, but for you. Here's another story of what I went through to get over my fear of rejection. I read a book that tasked me with a very peculiar way of getting accustomed to rejection by basically getting hit with it on a daily. Just like in martial arts, if I get head kicked by the same guy from the same angle every fucking day, eventually I will get wise and start seeing that shit coming, right? Soon I'll be able to counter it or avoid it entirely. How many fucking times do I have to get kicked in the head before I see that shit coming? I was tasked with going to the mall and getting rejected 10 times before I could go home. So I went to Roseville Mall and I went up to 10 beautiful women and I had to try. I couldn't just bullshit or say some nut shit to get away. I had to give legitimate attempts. And if I should happen to get a date or phone number, then it didn't count. And from the lesson standpoint, the harsher the rejection, the better the growth, theoretically. So there I was, first fucking Saturday of that month. 45 minutes. All it took was 45 fucking minutes and I was dust. Easy rejections. I was home in bed with the blinds down and in my fucking feels before sunset. That shit would fucking kill me. You wouldn't believe the things women said to me. How dare you? Or, really? Have you looked in the mirror? Like, I've had some soul-crushing experiences. And I tried to do my best, but the problem was I was too attached to the outcome, and they could sense my desperation. Down, but never out, I would repeat the process every fucking Saturday, and sadness evolved into anger and contempt very quickly. Eventually, I stopped going straight home. Instead, I would go to the gym. I would feel the hatred of the rejections and use that to fuel my workouts. I would go absolute beast mode to make the feelings of inadequacy go away. Eventually, I got a hard body, and it was taking longer and longer to get curved 10 times. Eventually, I was at the mall for a whole fucking day trying to get curved, but something changed. I was so natural in my approach, and I cared so little about rejection that I was no longer afraid of it, and that confidence translated directly into my game. Eventually, I could see the girls who were attracted to me. Their body language told me everything their mouths wouldn't. I had finally gained the sight I wanted for so long, and it took hundreds of no's. I used to set up 2 dates in one night just because I knew I would get stood up by at least one of them. One night, I got stood up by both. I was so dejected that I went to the movies by myself that night. And luckily, John Wick had just come out, so I at least got treated to that. But nowadays, I don't need to do that shit. I can see and do things that make dates happen because of the language of subtlety. A language too far off and misunderstood by most. Rejection taught me so much in my life. It taught me that it doesn't matter if I was as handsome as the next dude, that fucking Giga Chad, but it wouldn't matter, because if I was overtaxed the results, instead, I learned that if I could be happy and accept myself for who I am, I could be better equipped to find someone who could do that same thing. And I learned that some chicks I didn't want anything to do with. The girls I used to like, as of now, I could see their flaws and the reasoning behind why they were never any good for me in the first place. I was lucky not to have been trapped by them. You have some training to do. You don't have to do what I did. I'll tell you right now, that shit takes an ironclad heart and balls of steel. Or in my case, an attitude that just says, I don't care anymore. When we hit our lowest point, we are open to the greatest change. I hit rock bottom, and from the abyss, I climbed out myself. But I took a power with me that aids me even today. And that is the power of self-respect. If you respect yourself, don't trouble yourself with rejection and feelings of inadequacy. If you hold true to yourself and don't compromise your principles just to save being alone, you will find that people will respect you for it. But most importantly, you will respect yourself for it. And self-respect is sexy as fuck. So work on you. Put yourself out there, but do not attach yourself to the result. If you get a chance to meet someone, don't think of it like you're being interviewed. Instead, look at it like you're observing and comparing your compatibility. The relationships that fail are the ones where people are codependent. Oh, I need you to live. I can't live. I can't go on without you. Fuck you. I'm fine by myself. If two like minded folks find each other but realize that though they don't need each other, they choose to be with one another, it takes away the pressures of a relationship and unnecessary expectations. Instead, it weaves room for an organic connection. Codependency is dangerous. Love yourself first and find someone compatible that you are attracted to. If it works out, cool. But do not settle for something that doesn't work just because you're lonely. We all get lonely. But that doesn't make it okay for you to settle. And don't you dare tolerate disrespect. Life can be a lot simpler if you want it to be. Rejection happens. Don't let it hinder your growth. Accept that it's okay. And you are not the worst person in the world, and that you simply have to keep going. We sometimes find things we weren't necessarily looking for. Life is a great big adventure. Go out there and get you some.